Nuremberg. This is based on the real story of the Nuremberg trials after World War II. It takes place, obviously, right after the war. The main character, Douglas Kelly, again, was a real psychologist. He's played by Rami Malek. I have my notes off to the side on my other monitor, if you're wondering. That's why I'm looking over here. So he's the main character, Rami Malek. He plays Douglas Kelly. He's an American psychologist, and he's tasked with evaluating the mental health of the remaining Nazi leadership that has been captured by the Allied forces. The main conflict or contention in the film is the tension between, it's like a mix of tension, and they slowly build like a camaraderie with each other. Kelly and then the Nazi General Göring, played by Russell Crowe, which again was a real Nazi leader. He's played by Russell Crowe, and it's not just Göring, but it's like a bunch of the highest ranking Nazi officials still alive who've been again captured by the Allied forces, which is the United States, France, the UK, and the USSR, right? And Göring was the leader, I forgot the German word for it, but he's the leader of the Nazi Air Force, basically. He was the leader of the Nazi Air Force. So, so the Allied forces and the basically the state prosecutors of the United States and the UK want to pursue legal charges against the Nazi leadership, right? And this is a legal concept that has yet to be tried, and that's what's so legally significant when it comes to international law, right? What's so legally significant about Nuremberg is that it set basically precedent. It was a new sort of thing that never happened before in history, that prosecutors from one state can pursue charges of war crimes and what they enacted as crimes against humanity, right? So this was a new concept that they had, and that's basically this film portrays that in a legal sense, right? And it was due to international jurisdiction. Again, there was no big international body right after World War II, right? Again, after World War II, that's when the UN, United Nations, was created, and NATO and all that stuff, right? League of Nations, I believe that was after World War I. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the UN and the NATO were formed after World War II, right? Or really in response to World War II. So Douglas, he slowly grows a relationship with Göring over the course of the film, and that's what's so fascinating, right? This, Nazi officer, American psychologist, you'd think they'd be at odds, right? Obviously, Kelly thinks that the Nazis, are horrific, they committed all these war crimes and stuff like that, but despite all that, they actually somewhat form a relationship, and it's advantageous on both sides. They both think that they could get something out of each other and play to their advantage, so that's kind of like a little conflict that happens that I think is portrayed very good in this movie. So the American prosecutor, Robert Jackson, right? Again, this was a real person as well. And the British prosecutor, David Maxwell Fye, I hope I'm saying his last name right, David Maxwell Fye, attempt to use, they're the ones that are pursuing the charges of crimes against humanity against Göring and the rest of the captured Nazi officials. They utilize Douglas Kelly's patient-client confidential information they kind of have him breach that confidentiality against the Nazis, because he is the psychologist for the Nazis in the holding facility in Nuremberg, right? So they use Kelly to basically feed them private information, any information that they divulge about the legal defense that Goering and the Nazi officials are going to mount against these state charges. They basically have the two prosecutors, the British and American prosecutors, basically have Kelly sidestep his, but I believe, right, the patient oath, right, the medical oath that he takes, right, the patient-client confidentiality. So that's a big conflict in the film, right? Douglas Kelly is conflicted on, like, I took my oath to my medical profession that I should never leak confidential information, but then again, it's leaking against Nazis that committed, horrific crimes and stuff like that. So that's a really good aspect of the film. It shows the internal conflict, struggling to do what is moral, what is right. And it could really, right, as a viewer, you could understand really both sides. Like, you could understand why he would keep it private, right, because of his profession, but you would also understand why he did, and he ultimately did decide to leak the private conversations in order to tell the state prosecutors their Nazis' defense prior to the trial, so they could counter the defense, right? But you can see why he would do either one, really. So about halfway through the film, I want to say, maybe halfway, it's only like, I think it was like an hour, or no, it was like 2 hours. It was actually a pretty long film. It was like 2 hours, 12 minutes. About halfway through the film, the trial commences for the first day, and the prosecution, they present, now there's a really good scene where Goering is brought into the courtroom. Goering and all the Nazis are standing on trial, right? And Goering, like, stands up defiantly and looks directly at the prosecutor. It's a very intense scene, right? So basically, the prosecution presents to the jury, or I guess, just to the jury and the Nazis being held captive. They present very now this scene made me this made me tear up. This was definitely the hardest aspect of the film to watch from an emotional standpoint. They presented very graphic footage of the Allies liberating the concentration camps, and it showed very horrific footage of the captives, right, of Jews basically being like they were starved. They're very skinny. They have to be carried out on stretchers. It showed horrific videos of the dead bodies piled up, being ran over by vehicles, and mass graves, and all the horrific atrocities that took place at Auschwitz and the various concentration camps, right? And apparently, I didn't know this, apparently that was never before seen footage like IR, not like in the aspect of the movie, but again, because this movie is based off reality, but that was never before seen footage like IRL. Like apparently the film director got access to this never before seen footage and basically showed it to the world for the first time through this film, which I thought was a really cool aspect of this film again. But that was, very emotionally moving. It made me tear up. It was very hard to watch. So the footage obviously affects Kelly, and then, again, and this is where the conflict lies, he kind of built up this repertoire and relationship with Goering despite their differences because they worked together for so long, talking about his mood. He would go and visit, like, Goering's family. This was another an emotional, this was a very sad movie to watch. He would go and visit Goering's family. Goering had his German wife, his daughter there in the Nuremberg, right? And he would, like, play piano and stuff for his daughter, and right, and his daughter would ask him, like, "Oh, how is my father?" Right, because she's a kid, she doesn't really know what's going on. She doesn't really know that he's basically a prisoner at the mercy of the Allied forces. So his daughter would ask Kelly, like, "Oh, what, can you send this?" He like, Kelly would get Goering to write notes to his family, and then he would go to their house and hand the notes to them, and he basically formed a relationship not only with Goering, but with Goering's family, his daughter, his wife. So that was a very, intense, emotional scene. And that goes to show that, like, yeah, the Nazis were terrible, right? But they're still human, right? They have families just like everyone else does, and their families are really innocent collateral damage in all of this, right? His daughter didn't do anything, his wife didn't do anything. Now, obviously, yeah, there could be an argument to be made that Germany as a whole, because they let Hitler take power, they kind of, in a lot of ways, let it happen, but also in a lot of ways didn't. Like, a lot of the civilians didn't really know about the Holocaust, they didn't know about the atrocities and the concentration camps, and really, if they did, there was nothing they could do against it. Like, you can't stand, as a German civilian, there's nothing you could really do to stand up against the German state, because you would get imprisoned or killed. But it shows the nuance in the conflict, and really how horrific it was, not just on the soldiers, but on people's families, for everyone, all sides, American soldiers, German soldiers, Japanese, right? America. There was even one point where Goering brings up, hey, well, like, you wouldn't judge us for the concentration camps and stuff, but, you guys had internment camps for the Japanese, which is true, right? America did have internment camps for Japanese civilians and stuff like that. But then Kelly brought up the counterpoint. It's like, hey, well, we're not killing these people. It's not death camp. We're just detaining them for national security aspects. Whereas the Germans are just rounding up innocent Jews, homosexuals, gypsies, people suspected of being communists, based on really no legal person. They have no, right? In America, we still had the constitutional rights and stuff like that. So, again, it very, like, all the history stuff. If you like history, you'll love this movie. There is a lot of legal and moral aspects that are kind of in conflict with each other, and it really explores that in a very well way. And that's what's hilarious, right? Woke right people will try and say that, oh, this just demonizes the Nazis. It's so-called Jewish propaganda. That's what I've seen people say about this film online, at least the woke right, troll types. No, actually, it kind of humanizes the Nazis to a certain extent. It doesn't shy away from the atrocities and the horrific things they did, of course. But it does show a different side. It's not, like, right? Like, it's hard to explain, but I think this film portrays all sides of the conflict very well. And it just shows the reality. Like, Nazis were bad. Hot take, Nazis did horrific things. The Holocaust was terrible, right? And it happened, by the way, it's reality. A lot of people try and say that it's fake nowadays. People online, these, Groiper people like Mr. Daryl Cooper, Martyr Maid, will try and do apology and do this weird historical revisionist stuff where, oh, actually it didn't happen, and they had to put the Jews in camps and stuff, right? There's all this insane ahistorical revisionist nonsense out there. So I think that people like Daryl Cooper, Mr. Martyr Maid, might learn a thing or two from this movie. So-called historian. Anyway, that's my retarded political rant. Anyway, see here. So yeah, Kelly goes, after getting emotional from seeing the footage, just like, us, the audience, did. He goes to confront Goering, and it basically says, F you, I hope you hang, right? Which is understandable. So then it jump cuts to the next day at the trial. Goring is being cross-examined by the British prosecutor, David Maxwell Fry. And Maxwell Fry, this is really good. So this might be the best scene in the movie. Maxwell Fry basically establishes that he did know about the SS and what they did. He did know about the camps and what happened at the camps. Basically the Holocaust, the genocide that happened against the Jewish people and various other groups within Nazi Germany. And he basically, and I think that's my recount, right? David Frost proves that, and then he switches off. He hands it off to no. So no, first the American prosecutor interviews him, Robert Jackson, and he basically just establishes the groundwork for their legal case, and then he hands it off to Maxwell Fye, and he proves Goring basically knew about the camps, and then he also gets Goring to admit his dying loyalty to Adolf Hitler. He says that he says, if Hitler were still alive, would you follow him? After establishing the fact that, you know, the Nazis, Hitler did commit the Holocaust, right? And he basically says yes, you know, and then Heil Hitler is what he says. So that basically proves that, yeah, he supported all this, he knew about it, and he was in favor of it, and that even today, even after knowing that all this happened, he would still follow Hitler. So that basically is the legal case is, you know, shut, right? Like he's screwed. He's going to get executed now. There's no shadow of a doubt, right? Beyond a reasonable doubt is the legal terminology, right? There's beyond a reasonable doubt that he basically assisted in committing the Holocaust, and that he really doesn't regret it because he said Heil Hitler, right? I hope I don't get demonetized on YouTube for this, by the way. I know YouTube has some weird rules about talking about Nazi stuff. So, all the Nazis basically are sentenced to death, and then one of them commits suicide beforehand, and then Goering also, unfortunately, ends his own life before he's able to face real justice by hanging. He has cyanide. He takes cyanide in his cell and kills himself that way, right? Which sucks because you wanted them to see them hang, right, to face real justice, not die at their own hands in their cell, away from everyone and away from the rest of the world, right? So that was kind of unfortunate that they were allowed to kill themselves and end their lives on their own terms rather than by the Allied forces. So highlights about the film, other aspects that I wanted to bring up that I probably touched on a bit in my summary, but I would just say that Rami Malek is a great actor. I love Rami Malek. If you've seen Mr. Robot, he's great. He has that sort of deadpan stare. Something about his acting method. He has that. I don't know. It's hard to describe, but Rami Malek is always great. His portrayal of Douglas Kelly, really good, right? As the protagonist, the main character of the film, Douglas Kelly. Goring was good. Russell Crowe is great, right? Russell Crowe, have you ever seen Gladiator? You know that Russell Crowe is fucking badass, right? Russell Crowe played a different role than he typically plays in this, right? He, having to play, and he talked about this. I recommend you go watch the Joe Rogan episode he did interviewing Russell Crowe, and they talked about his portrayal of Goring in this film. Him and Joe did. It's very hard to play a Nazi, right? Especially because he's not German, right? He's Australian, I believe. It's very hard to pull off a Nazi character that has that's imposing and scary, but not over the top Hollywood ridiculous Nazi, kind of just realistic. This was just a bare bones realistic sort of take. Now there's other types of Nazi portrayals in media that I really like. Not to say and that kind of sounds bad. That doesn't mean I'm pro. I'm not trying to say that I like Nazi. I'm just saying that I like the way in which Nazis were portrayed in certain media and film from a entertainment viewpoint perspective, right, is what I'm trying to say. Again, don't ban me, YouTube. Obviously, everybody knows of, what's the guy's name again? I can't believe I forgot the guy's name, but Inglourious Bastards, everybody knows. You're hiding a Jew in your basement, Art, you're right. What's his name? Christopher Waltz. He portrays the SS officer. What was the SS officer's name? Hans Landa. Hans Landa. That's probably the all-time greatest portrayal of a Nazi in film that I've ever seen in my life, obviously. Hans Landa. in Inglorious Bastards, right, is just phenomenal. And it's really hard to, again, from an acting perspective, you got to have real talent, and Russell Crowe really proved that he has real talent in regards to that in order to pull off a convincing portrayal of a Nazi officer. So back to my notes here. And that's the thing, is that he actually manages at certain points in the film, you basically feel sympathy for him. Here, one second. I'm streaming this live, by the way, so for people that watch this on YouTube, someone just typed in my chat, so let me read what they had to say. Yo, what's up? Can you reply to me on chat instead of Mike, because broke my headphones 2 days ago. Hi, how are you? Tanisha786. All right, I'll type to you in chat. Hey, what's up? Just finishing my YouTube movie review. Or my movie review for YouTube. I hope you enjoy it, Tanisha. Thank you for watching. Oh yeah, I gotta. Here, 1 second. To the people watching this on YouTube, I'm typing to someone in my live chat right now. 1 second. All right. Anyway, so yeah, he actually manages to make the performance. With his performance, he manages to make Goering seem somewhat actually sympathetic at times, which I think is very inspiring, I guess, to a certain extent. So. So the scene in the courtroom, again, this is where never before seen footage, the director somehow got his hands, James Vanderbilt, somehow got his hands on this footage, right? And it was a real emotional gut punch. If you're sensitive about that sort of thing, be careful watching this film, because I couldn't help it. I teared up. It's hard to watch, because I have Jewish friends and stuff. And, to think that someone would want to commit heinous and horrific war crimes against them like that, simply for the fact of being Jewish, not even religiously, just ethnic, right? The Nazis didn't even really that much care about the Jewish Judaism as a religion. They just targeted them based off of their ethnicity, right? Which was, just makes it all the more horrific. The war crimes and genocide they committed against the Jewish people and gypsies and all the other racial groups. So yeah, that was a very powerful scene. Just the imagery of the bodies stacked up, the mass graves, the starving Jews being rescued from the camps as they could barely walk. You could basically see their bones, their rib cages, they were so thin. Gruesome stuff, man. Gruesome stuff. And one more thing I want to say. I saw the Film Threat, which I'm a big fan. Big shout out to the YouTube channel Film Threat. I really like their stuff. I highly recommend their reviews. They might be some of the best, if not my favorite movie review YouTuber. They did try and say that, there was like a little bit of woke, like politics stuff in there. Now, obviously, it is a political movie, but I don't think it was like woke. They said that there was one reference towards the end of the movie where they tried to compare it to modern day America and to like lay orange man bad stuff. I didn't see that. I'm not sure what they were referring to. If that is the case, then obviously that's stupid as hell, right? But no, there was no woke modern day political like references to, Trump is like Hitler. Obviously, that's ridiculous. So I didn't see any of that in the film, thank God, because I wouldn't be surprised if some other person made this film, they would probably try and do that. They would probably try and say, oh, it's like Orange Man bad, and basically you're a Nazi and you support that. I didn't see that in this film, thank God. It really avoided the woke, crazy, modern day contemporary politics stuff from an American perspective. It really just focused on 1940, like the post World War II, the immediate aftermath of World War II in the Nuremberg. It didn't do any contemporary stuff, which is great. That's how it should be, by the way, right? So, again, I like this movie a lot. I gave this movie I think like a 4 out of 5 stars on Letterboxd. So I do highly recommend this. If you like history, if you like World War II, stuff like that, then I recommend you go and see this film or catch it on streaming whenever it goes on streaming. And I'll just, I think that films like this should be made more. It's very harrowing. I don't know if that's the correct word, but it's very. If you spend any time online for the past 10 or so years now at this point, there is crazy anti-Semitic stuff, crazy historical revisionism in regards to World War II, and like on Twitter and really everywhere online, go to any YouTube comment section about any video that's about Jews or Hitler or Nazis or the Holocaust. Go to the YouTube comment section and you'll see really horrific stuff. Now, I think a lot of it's foreign bots, dishonest, bad faith actors amplifying things to try and sow chaos. But there is a legitimate, sizable portion of the population that really is trying to bring back these sort of horrific ideas and make apologetics for these horrific crimes and people that happened during World War II. And I just want to say that, what's the saying? Never again is now, is what I have to say. And it really is now. So I think we need films like this more than ever, because for my Jewish friends, it's not looking good out there. Stay safe, because things are getting bad. People really seem to freaking hate Jewish people online nowadays. And yeah, it sucks, because they're great people, honestly. So I like this film. That's all I had to say. I had to add my little tidbit there at the end. But yeah, thank you for watching. Go ahead and subscribe. I'm going to go off to the theater right now and see, what's it called? It's the new Brendan Fraser film, Rental Family. So I'll have a review of that probably tomorrow. I'll see it today, but I don't know if I'll be able to have time to review it until tomorrow. So I'll probably upload that tomorrow. If not, then I guess I'll upload it today if I have time. But go ahead and subscribe. I'll have more movie reviews coming soon. Whenever I see a new movie in the theater, 80% of the time I'll do a movie review of it. I'll always post a review of it on my Letterboxd, so you could go ahead and follow me there. And hopefully, I want to branch out and do more types of content. Like, maybe I should start uploading gameplay. I think it's a very saturated market. Gameplay. Everyone uploads gameplay nowadays. But yeah, I don't know. I want to find more stuff to do on my YouTube than just movie reviews. So if you have any suggestions, anything you'd like to see me do, go ahead and post a comment. But anyway, thank you all for watching. I'll see you later.